And then come right up to the front of your chair. Whoop, forgot to take my socks off. Come right up to the front of your chair and bring your feet underneath your knees. And see if you can feel the tripods of your feet. So I talk about this all the time. So your heel, the big toe knuckle, and the little toe knuckle. See if you can press down into those three parts in each foot. And then relax your toes. So quite often what happens is when you press into the front of the tripod, right? So the big toe and the little toe knuckle, quite often what will happen is your toes will sort of scrunch under a little bit. So we want to relax the toes and press into the knuckles. Good. All right. And then as you're pressing down, can you feel your leg muscles activate a little bit? And then notice where you are on your sitting bones on the chair. So are you sitting kind of facing forward so you're off the front edge of your sitting bones a little bit, or are you kind of leaning back a little bit? See if you can find kind of center with the sitting bones. You can even reach under there. If you can't feel your sitting bones, reach under and just kind of pull the fleshy part of your seat out of the way. And that way you feel it. All right. And then notice where your shoulders are relative to your hips, right? So are your shoulders in front of your hips? In other words, are you leaning forward a bit? This is the posture most of us, this is the posture we assume a lot of the time. We're kind of leaning forward a little bit and then the head is up like this. So you kind of get this perspective. So see if you can bring your shoulders back a little bit. And when you bring your shoulders back a little bit, can you go back far enough that you start to feel your belly muscles activate? So if you go back just far enough, you'll feel your abdominal muscles start to wake up a little bit. So we're going to wake up those abdominal muscles. And then notice where your head is relative to your shoulders, and specifically where your ears are. So again, some of us, we sit like this, right? So the head is forward like this. See if you can bring your ears over your shoulders. What I like to do is take my thumbs and fingers, put your thumbs here on your shoulder, and then go straight up. See if you go right inside your ear, right? If you're forward, you're going to go behind your ear a little bit, right? So you want to kind of bring your head back and get that first finger right inside your ear, like your own wet willy, right? A dry willy. All right. Okay. So with all of that alignment, now notice your breath. Notice if it's sort of faded into the background. You kind of forgot about the whole breathing thing. So you're pressing into your feet, into the tripods of both feet. You're sitting in the middle of your sitting bones, so you're not leaning forward, you're not leaning backward. You're not on one side or the other, right? So one sitting bone, I'm really sitting heavy on that one side, but not so much on the other. So I'm right in the middle there, and then the shoulders are right above the hips, and then that neck is relaxed so that your ears are above your shoulders, and you're breathing in and breathing out, and close your eyes. So see if you can inhale and exhale through your nose. Notice if that's possible this morning. And again, with all the rain we've had this year, I know people's allergies are really kind of cranked up a little bit. So if you're having some difficulty breathing in and out through your nose, you can do a little auxiliary with your mouth, but try to do most of the breathing in and out through your nose. And slow that breath down. As you inhale, imagine, so you get your eyes closed, so you might be able to see this internally as if you're inside your own body. So imagine as you're breathing in, you're sending that breath right down into your sitting bones. And then as you exhale, it's coming from your sitting bones all the way up and out. So just imagine as you inhale, you're sending the breath all the way down to your sitting bones, and as you exhale, you're sending that breath from the sitting bones up and all the way out. And you might need to take longer, slower, deeper breaths to feel this. As you're feeling the air moving in and out of your nose, as you're imagining or visualizing the breath going all the way down to your sitting bones, I want you to also simultaneously feel your shoulders lift slightly on the inhalations and lower slightly on the exhalations. And if you're not feeling this, you need to take deeper, slower breaths. And as you continue this, notice if you're aware that you have more space for breath in your body than you thought you did. And the next time that you come to the top of your inhalation, so when your body feels really full and you feel yourself pressing into your sitting bones, I'm going to ask you to hold your breath just for a slow count of 2 or 3. So you can just kind of do 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi in your own head. So just for a slow count of 3. And after that slow count of 2 or 3, then you can release all the breath. And again, we're going to repeat that several times. So on the inhalation, you're going to come to the top of your inhalation. Maybe breathe in a little bit more because maybe you have some more space in there. And then you're going to hold your breath in for a slow count of 2 or 3 before exhaling again. And do that 2 more times on your own. And after you've completed your second one, just go back to your natural breath. Notice if it feels like you have more natural space now for breath. If your normal inhalation is a little bit longer or a little bit deeper. If your normal exhalation is a little bit slower or a little bit more complete. You can take in a nice full deep breath, let it out with a gentle sigh. You can let your eyes open, and we'll start with some movement in the hands and fingers this morning. So just squeezing and extending the fingers, noticing how they were all working, breathing in, out, and turn your palms up, squeeze your fists. Extend. So really squeeze when you bring your fingers in. And feel that squeezing come all the way up your arms and into your biceps, so your upper arms. Right? And then we're going to take the hands and turn them palms facing down. Same thing, we're going to squeeze, and this time we're going to bring the knuckle down toward the floor. And then come back up and extend. So we're just doing this little movement with the knuckles at the wrist. So breathing in, breathing in, breathing in, breathing out. Good. Couple more. Excellent. Okay, and then just circle at your wrists a little bit here. Good. And reverse direction. All right, and then take your hands together and interlace your fingers. So you got like a little fist here, and bring your elbows sort of close together. And then what we're going to do is just start to circle at the wrists. Right? So just making this little rotation at your wrists. Breathing, going the other way. So get your arms really close together at the wrists if you can. Yeah. And feel that movement, right? And go the other way again. Excellent. All right, and then release that. We're going to take the arms out to the sides, lower than your shoulders. right? And press out through the heels of your hands. Lift your fingers toward the ceiling. So lift your fingers and spread them nice and wide. You're going to keep your fingers spread nice and wide, and then we're going to bring the fingers down toward the floor and then up toward the ceiling. Breathing in and breathing out. So you can have a little bend in your elbows if you'd like, or you can have your elbows straight. So notice which gives you the most sensation, and try and stay in that place where you have more sensation. Good. Nice breaths in and out. Excellent. And then the next time you have your fingers up, we're going to hold here. Now we're going to turn the thumbs forward, bend the elbows, and bring your hands so your fingers are facing your body. Right? So you got that? So it's like you're going to put your hands on your waist, but you don't. You just have them kind of down here. So if you're way up here, bring your hands down here toward your waist. Actually, let's everybody do that. Put your hands on your waist. That's a good way to go. Okay, so from here, you're going to take your hands off your waist, keep your fingers spread wide, and then see if you can bring your fingers up a little bit more toward your elbows. Just your fingers, not your hands. So just your fingers, right? Good. Breathe in, breathe out. Can you roll your elbows forward a little bit more and then back? And roll the elbows forward and back and breathe, right? And relax. Notice your neck and your jaw. Notice your feet, your hips. We're just kind of going forward and backward with this. We might be getting a whole lot of sensation in the hands and the arms, right? Yeah. Okay, just a couple more. Excellent. And then come back and just sort of circle the wrists around a little bit. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of bending for the elbows. So holding the elbows in close to the body, we're going to make fists with the hands, and make a fairly tight fist with your hands, like you're holding on to something that you don't want to drop. And then we're just going to bring the fists up. Can you get really close to your shoulders, and then super slow go down? And breathe in and breathe out. So we're going up, and then really super slow go down. And as you're super slow going down, see if you can keep these muscles here really tight, right? So those are your biceps muscles. So we're coming up and super slow going down. Now if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, imagine you have 5 pounds in each hand, right? So as you're doing this, visualize or feel or sense that you have 5 pounds in each hand. So we're doing some muscular contraction here for the biceps to build some strength there. Good. Next time you have your fists up to your shoulders, let's all just kind of meet there at some point, right? So once everybody's there. Good. So now we're all there. So we're going to let the hands, the arms actually extend only halfway. So we're just going to come down halfway, and we're going to hold here and squeeze. So your arms should be parallel with the floor, right? Good. And squeeze your hands a little bit. Everybody got 5 pounds? Yeah? Go to 10. Go to 10. Notice what that feels like. Breathe into 10 pounds in each hand and imagine what that feels like, right? So just kind of holding. Notice if your hands are doing most of the work. Notice if you can transfer some of the tension in your hands up into your biceps. Good. And then we're going to really slowly lower all the way down. When your hands get down toward the floor, just release your fists, kind of drop those weights, kind of wiggle your fingers a little bit, shake out your arms a little bit. Excellent. Okay, let's roll the shoulders a couple of times. So we're just rolling up and around and down. And notice if it's noisy in there. Anybody got noise in the shoulders? Little bit of noise, lot of noise. Crunching, crackling, snapping kind of stuff. Got a whole lot of stuff up in here. A whole lot of tendons and bones and muscles. And then reverse direction. And as you're doing that, you might just really gently turn your head from side to side. Slow and easy, so don't turn too fast. You don't want to pinch anything. All right, and then relax all of that. Take your right arm out to the side like you're doing a strong arm here, right? So you're trying to keep somebody at arm's length. Bring your fingers up toward the ceiling. Okay, we're going to bring the arm all the way up overhead, and then we're going to come all the way down. Go past the midline and all the way down. So we're just going to do this a few times. So if your shoulder doesn't allow you to bring your arm up that high, that's okay. Do the best you can. So notice if you're leaning to one side. So that's a compensation that we do, right? So one way to check if you're leaning is to take your left hand, place it on the chair, and keep that elbow straight. You'll notice, oh, wow, yeah, this feels straight. But when I put my hand there, that makes a difference. Next time you're halfway, we're going to hold here at halfway. Take your first finger and your thumb together. So you make like a little circle, right? So we're going to take that. Oh, sorry. Forget the circle for now. I forgot the first part. We're going to go all the way up with the palm, bend the elbow, and place the palm of your hand on the side of your face. So again, notice if you're leaning, that's why having the hand here is really helpful. And then we're going to come all the way up and come all the way down. Okay, so let's breathe. We're going to do this 3 more times, coming all the way up. Try not to lean your body. Try not to tilt your head. So if your hand doesn't get to your face, that's okay, right? So we're breathing in and breathing out. Good. I think this is 2 of our 3. Well, I said 3 more, so that would be, yeah. All right. Let's shake that out a little bit. All right. Now we're going to do the little first finger and thumb together, right? So you have like a little circle here. So that's going to be your spyglass. So we're going to take that arm out to the side. So we're keeping the wrist extended, which means up like this. So the fingers are up toward the ceiling. Keep the fingers extended. We're going to go up overhead, bend the elbow, and then see if you can bring that little spyglass to your eye. So not like this, right? Like this. It should be a little uncomfortable. Yeah? Yeah, there you go. So not like that, but like this. And then come all the way up and down. Let's shake that out a little bit. We're going to try that again. So what ends up happening is our brains get a little confused with this movement in our arms because we don't, well, maybe you do. Do you do that often? Not very often, right? Yeah, so the brain doesn't know how to manipulate the arm in that way. So most people, or a lot of people will come up and do this, right? So you can see my fingers, my hand, my palm is facing this way. What we really want is for the palm to be facing up toward the ceiling, like that. So it's a little bit different, right? Okay, so thumb and first finger together. Bring that arm out to the side. So we want to extend through the joints, right? So we want to extend through the joints, bring the fingers up. So once again, extend through that wrist, then come up overhead. Turn the palm of your hand up toward the ceiling. That's it. And then try and get the finger there. Yeah, don't poke your eye, right? Don't poke your eye. Yeah, you're going to make a mess of your glasses. Yep, for sure. Thanks. After class, you're going to have to clean those glasses. And then all the way down. Whew, shake that out a little bit. All right, let's let that arm kind of hang off the side, right? And just give a little lean into that side. And as you give a lean into that side, take your left hand, hold on to the chair. So I want you to hold on to the chair so that you don't have to use the muscles in the side of your body so much to do this. So now what we're going to do is just circle that arm around a little bit. Let the arm be heavy, right? So if you feel like you're controlling your arm, just sort of let it go. Little gentle circles. Just feel that movement. And I like to visualize, there's these things, and I don't know the name of them, but they make little marks in sand. So it's like a sand drawing, and it's usually a little pendulum thing that comes down, and you get it circling, and then you let it go, and it makes all these really weird designs in the sand. Do anybody know what I'm talking about? You do? Okay, good. Do you know what it's called? Okay, I don't know what it's called either. But that's how I feel like my arm is, right? It's just this little pendulum that's drawing something in the sand. All right, and then come back up and let both arms hang off. Close your eyes for a moment and notice how much longer your right arm is than your left. Take a breath in, let it out with a sigh. All right, let's relax that right arm for a little bit, and we're going to take the left arm out to the side. So a little strong arm here. Keep the hand lower than the shoulder. So if you have your hand above your shoulder, I'm going to ask you to just drop it down a little bit. Bring the fingers up toward the ceiling a little bit more. Good. And now we're just going to go up as high as is comfortable. So some people aren't going to get up really high. Some people are going to get that arm way up. And then we're going to go all the way down. So we're just doing this really nice, easy movement, making the arm as long as it can be. So think about creating space from your wrist all the way to your shoulder, right? So the more you can reach out through the heel of your hand, the more you'll get that sensation. Okay, so now the next time you come up, when you get a little bit above shoulder height, bend your elbow and place the palm, so your palm of your hand is up toward the ceiling, place the palm of your hand on the side of your face. Yeah. And then come all the way up. It's like you're answering the phone. Old school, right? Old school. Remember the hardwired phones? With the cord that would strangle everybody in the family because you had to take it around the corner. All that kind of stuff. Good. Excellent. How about one more time? Great. And again, if it's helpful to have your right hand on the chair just to support yourself, I always find that's very informative. So relax that, shake it out a little bit. So it's informative to me because, again, sometimes we don't realize that we're kind of tilting, listing to one side because that's our normal, right? So we have this perception of where our center is. And if I tend to favor this side a little bit more, I don't want to put too much weight in here. Maybe I have a hip issue or I have a knee issue or something. So I tend to list to the side. So this feels like center to me. So when I have my hand here, that's actually very helpful. So take your thumb and first finger on that left side together, right? We're going to come out to the side, fingers up, 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 up. Come all the way up, bend your elbow so palm of the hand is up toward the ceiling. And then see if you can get your little spyglass up to your eye. And then come up and around. So we're going to do 3 more, right? 3 more. Breathing in, breathing out. So I always find that breathing in when I extend, it feels more natural for me. It might feel natural for you to exhale when you extend. So everybody has a little bit different feeling in their body. So whatever facilitates that feeling of openness, right? I think that was 2. I think this is our last one coming up, right? Yeah. So turn that palm. There we go. Good. And up and around. Great. So now hold on to your chair on the right if you haven't already. Let this arm hang down. And we're just going to lean a little bit into that left side because your right hand is holding you so you don't fall over. And then just get the movement going a little bit and then just let it go on its own. Right? So picture that little thing. I'm going to have to look that up, you guys, because now it's bugging me. What is that little... It is a pendulum, but it's a specific thing, I think, when it draws in the sand like that. It's a specific kind of tool. But yeah, it's like a little pendulum that's drawing in the sand. So like if you feel like you're moving your arm, I want you to just relax it. Let your arm just sort of have its own little movement, right? So it's very small. We do an awful lot in exercise programs where we get big ranges of motion. So come on up. Let both arms come all the way down. Let them hang off. Close your eyes for a moment and notice if the right arm and left arm feel a little more balanced now, if they feel a little more the same. Breath in, let it out with a sigh. All right, and then you can let your eyes open. So what I was saying is in most exercise classes, we explore the range of movement. We want to go to the end range of movement. We want to explore how much we can reach, how much we can turn, how much we can bend. And the reality is we forget about the little nuanced movements in the body. And when it comes to balance, it's not those big movements that keep you balanced. It's the little movements that keep you balanced. It's all this little shifting that happens every moment with every breath. So every time I breathe in, I'm shifting my body in a very small way. So if you really want to work on balance, think about the smaller movements in your body and how we can get a little bit more benefit from working those. And we'll do more of that too in this class. All right, we're going to shift right down to the feet because the feet and the hands account for half of all the bones in your body. We've talked about that before, right? So of all the bones in your body, 1/4 of them are in your feet, the other 1/4 are in your hands, and then the rest gets to divide up that other half. So look down at your feet. You all know where your tripods are now, right? The heel, the big toe knuckle and the little toe knuckle. So we're going to keep those pressed into the floor, and we're just going to lift and lower the toes. Just lift and lower the toes. And notice as you're doing this, do you have sore spots or tender spots somewhere? Are your toes independent, or do you have a toe or two that crosses over or kind of smushes into another toe? Do they all lift, or maybe just some of them lift? And the next time you have your toes lifted, just kind of hold here. So we're going to hold all those little toes up and then press just your big toes down and then lift them up again. So we're going to do this several times. So keep all the toes lifted, and then you're going to press and lower and lift your big toes. And when you lower the big toes, press down into the floor. So give it a good little squeeze at the end, right? And when you give the big toes a squeeze into the floor, see if you can keep the other toes lifted a little higher. It's almost like by pressing down into the big toe, you're creating this opposite effect in the other toes, where they're lifting a little higher. And if it helps to use your hands to sort of lead your feet, do that, right? So if your hands are kind of good at instructing, let your hands do the instructing. And breathe. So what feels most natural to you? So thinking about these toe movements, these are very small movements in the body. And I was just talking about small movements in balance. What feels most natural to you when you're pressing down? Does it feel more natural to exhale or inhale? And then relax your feet. Take a couple of breaths in and out and just notice what you feel. You can even close your eyes, kind of go inside that sensation in your feet, the awareness that we just created in the feet. And then you can open your eyes. Again, we're going to start by pressing into the tripods. So pressing down into the tripods, we're going to lift the toes up. Now we're going to keep the big toes lifted and then press all the little toes down and lift. So we're keeping the big toes lifted, pressing the little toes down and lifting, right? And this could be a big movement, it could be a small movement. And the more you can press into your little toes when they're down, see if that helps lift your big toe a little higher, right? So we're pressing and then lifting, we're lowering and lifting, right? So we're getting this movement. It's a dynamic movement. And I'm going to invite you again, maybe with your eyes closed, maybe with your eyes open. I'll invite you again to notice what feels most natural to you when you're breathing. Does it feel more natural to breathe out when you press down, or to breathe in when you press down? Is it different than when you were pressing the big toes down? Couple more of these. And then relax that and lower all the toes down. Take a moment with your eyes closed, breathing in, breathing out. Notice your toes and the bottoms of your feet and the tops of your feet and what those sensations are like. Let your eyes open. Again, pressing into tripods, so those 3 points on each foot. We're going to press the big toes down and lift all the little toes, and then lower down. So we're doing just the opposite. So breathing in and out, lifting and lowering the little toes, keeping the big toes pressed down into the floor. So when we hold the toes up and we press down, we're working the muscles in the bottoms of the feet. When we hold the toes down and we lift, we're actually working the muscles here in the front of the leg and a little bit in the top of the foot, but mostly in the front of the leg. That's what does this kind of movement. So again, notice your breath. What feels more natural? When does it feel more natural to inhale, and when does it feel more natural to exhale? Okay, and then relax your feet a little bit. And now we're going to keep the little toes down, so press them down, but don't scrunch them, right? So don't curl them under. You're just going to press them down and lift just the big toes and lower, and lift and lower the big toes. And again, focus on your breathing. What's happening with your breath? What feels most natural? As I inhale, this movement feels more natural. As I exhale, this movement feels more natural. So we've got the little toes pressing down, and we're lifting and lowering just the big toes. They're down. Yep, they stay down. Good, and then relax all of that. Oh, all right, take a moment, just notice your feet. Okay. So just to kind of review that. So we started, and we can do this together. We started with all the toes lifted, right? And then we pressed the big toes down and lifted, press and lift, right? And then we held the big toes up and we pressed all the little toes down and lifted. Yeah. And then we pushed all the toes down into the floor and we lifted just the little toes and lowered. And then we lifted just the big toes and lowered, right? So you got all of that, right? Yeah. Easy, right? Piece of cake. Piece of cake. All right, so let's do this. So with your tripods on the floor and your hands on your legs, all right? So relax your body, relax your breathing. Notice if you're leaning forward, right? So yeah, because you're anticipating where we're going. So you're like, I'm ready. All right. So come back so that your shoulders are over your hips and your neck is relaxed. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to lift all the toes. So keep your tripods on the floor, right? So the 3 points on each foot. So we're going to keep the toes lifted, tripods on the floor. Keep your palms on your lap, but raise all your fingers and your thumbs. Got that? Okay. So now you're going to press your thumbs and your big toes down. Keep your fingers and your little toes lifted. And then lift. Okay, let's try that again. So press your thumbs and your big toes down and lift. Keep your fingers and your little toes lifted the whole time. So we're just lowering and lifting the thumbs and the big toes at the same time. Got that? Are you breathing? Try breathing. And it might be very confusing now because we've added a level of complexity here, right? Yeah. Okay, and then relax all of that. Let your fingers rest, let your toes rest. Just notice. You might even close your eyes for a moment. Just notice what you're feeling, what you're sensing, right? There might be like more activity in your brain, like, oh, this is new, different, weird. I don't know what I just did. Not sure. Okay, and then eyes open. Actually, or closed. If you'd like, you can keep your eyes closed because you don't need them open for this. So raise your toes up. So you get your tripods down on your feet. Raise your toes up. Raise your fingers and thumbs up. Keep your palms on your lap. And now what we're going to do is keep the thumbs and the big toes lifted. And we're going to lower all the fingers and all the little toes and lift. So we're lowering fingers and little toes and lifting, right? So notice something very interesting. Does your pointer finger not know what to do? Your pointer finger thinks it's a big toe. We're educating it that it's not. Right? This is tough to do. And notice your breathing. Oh yeah, that piece, right? Breathing in, breathing out. Okay, and then let that all go. Whew, close your eyes if they're not closed. Take a couple of breaths in and out. See if you can notice now, did you create some tension somewhere else in your body? Are your shoulders tight? Were you gripping your butt? You're gripping your thighs? Were you holding your breath, maybe holding your tummy in kind of tight? What about your jaw? That's always a good place to store some extra tension, right in the jaw. And then let your eyes open. Okay, so tripods on the floor, toes on the floor, hands on your lap, fingers and thumbs on your lap, right? So we got good contact. You can feel that contact beneath your hands. You can feel that contact beneath your feet. So we're going to keep all the big toes and the thumbs on the downside, right? So the big toes are on the floor, thumbs are going to rest on your thighs. You're going to raise all your little toes and all your fingers and lower down. Got that? So thumbs and big toes stay down. We're going to raise all the fingers and all the little toes and then lower down. So thumbs and big toes stay down as we lift and lower. And you can look, if that makes sense, if that's helpful, just kind of looking. So notice if those big toes are lifting, right? Notice if the little toes don't quite know what to do. The point, The pointer finger staying on your legs. Your pointer finger thinks it's a big toe. It does, right? It's very interesting to do these kinds of exercises. So inhaling and exhaling. Good. And just one more time. And then lower. Okay. Fingers and toes and thumbs all down, right? We're going to keep them down. We're going to hold all the little toes down, all the fingers down, and we're just going to lift the big toes and the thumbs and lower down. And notice if the pointer wants to lift now, right? So we're raising just the thumbs and the big toes. All the other digits are kind of staying down on the floor. And notice your breathing. What's happened to it? Where did it go? Excellent. And then lower the fingers, lower the thumbs and the toes down. Relax everything. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a couple of breaths in and out and just notice if there's any kind of a connection that you are more aware of between your thumbs and your big toes, between your little toes and your fingers. You can open your eyes, take your hands off your lap, circle things around a little bit, kind of shake them out, and then maybe shake out one foot or move it around a little bit. So we've had the feet on the floor. All right, we're going to do one more movement here with fingers and toes. How's everybody doing? Which of those, I'm curious, which of those, did you find it easier to move the big toes and the thumbs independently of the little toes and the thumbs, or did you find it easier to move the little toes and the fingers as opposed to the big toes and the thumbs? So big toes and thumbs, easier to move them. So whether it was up or down, just easier to move them independently. Little toes and fingers. Yeah, so it's so interesting. There's always like a mix, right? I've never had a class, never talked to people and had like this consensus, like it's easier to do this because how we move our bodies in space, how we hold our bodies when we're standing, how we walk, how we sit, how we climb, stairs and things like that. It's all very individual to how we inhabit our bodies, right? So it's going to make it a little bit different. Okay, we're going to do one more little thing here, and this is just to kind of mix it up a little bit, especially for the brain. So we've got the tripods on the floor, we've got the palms on the lap, on the thighs, right? And the toes are down, the fingers are down. And so let's do this. Can you raise your right thumb and your left big toe? And then lower down. And now can you raise your left thumb and your right big toe? And lower down. Now notice if anybody else is trying to join the party, right? So this is a private party. It's just the right thumb and the left big toe and lower down, raising the left thumb and the right big toe and lowering down. Let's just keep doing that. So back and forth. So you're raising one thumb and the opposite big toe. Got that? Breathe and go a little faster. It's all relative, right? So fast to me might be slow to you. Fast to you might be slow to me. And notice, the faster you go, the more challenging it might get, right? Got that? Are you breathing? Except for more than the minimum? Yeah, it takes a little more focus and concentration, right? Yeah. Okay, relax all of that. Okay, I see everybody's jaw just went, oh. Yeah, it's very stressful doing these movements. Okay, so let's do this because I think you all said that the thumbs, or most of you said that the thumbs and the big toe movement was easier. There were just a few of you who found it the opposite, but that was the easiest for most of us. So now we're going to try it the other way, which is to keep your thumbs and your big toes down. Or actually, everything is down. Sorry about that. Everything is down, right? So hands, fingers, thumbs on your lap, toes on the floor. Okay, so we're going to keep the big toes down and we're going to keep the thumbs down so they don't move at all. You're going to raise your right fingers, all of them, and your left toes and lower down. Raise your left fingers and your right toes, not your big toe, just the little ones, and lower down. So again, right fingers, left little toes and down. Left fingers, right toes and down. Oh boy, right? Now you're on your own. So you're going, lifting all the fingers on one hand, and on the opposite foot, you're lifting all of the toes except for the great toe. We're not lifting the great toe. Big toe wants to go, right? Yeah, it's saying, hey, I want to party too. What's your pointer finger doing? Is it still confused? Yeah. It's so interesting, right? Are you breathing more than just the minimum? You have to do that too, I know. It's just, there's a lot to this. And you thought biceps curls were hard, right? All right, let that all go. Whew. Shake out your hands a little bit. Let's tap the feet. Let's wake them up in a little different way. So just give them a little bit of a tap here. All right, and then we're going to stretch the feet out. So extend the right leg, have your heel on the floor, and let's just point and flex the foot. So you can lift your heel up if you want. So you can tap your toes, tap your heel. We've done enough toe work for this hour anyway, right? Do more during the day though. The more toe work you do, the stronger your toes are. The stronger your toes are, the more balanced your body becomes. And then we're going to circle around at the ankle and reverse direction of those ankle circles. And then bend that knee. Let's go the other side. So same thing, point and tap, point and tap. Good. Okay, and circle around, and reverse. And bend that knee, bring your foot to the floor. So bring your feet a little wider than your hips. And sit right up near the front edge of your chair. So you have the tripods of your feet on the floor, nice and strong. Have your hands on your thighs with your fingers facing slightly in and your elbows facing slightly out. Okay, and relax your shoulders a little bit. So don't let your shoulders come up around your ears. Now thinking about your shoulders being above your hips, I'm going to ask you to focus on your rib cage now. So the rib cage it goes way down here, right? Actually, everybody do this. So take your hands, find your rib cage. So just kind of with nice flat hands, press around down there. You can feel your rib cage. When you get to the front, it gets soft because it's open in the front, but you can feel it on the side, right? You can feel kind of the rib cage. So now notice, if you're holding your rib cage, can you push your rib cage forward and then pull your rib cage back, right? So I'm going to go sideways so you can see. So I'm pushing the rib cage forward. You can see the arch in my back, and then I'm pulling the rib cage back. So pushing forward and pulling back. Okay, so what we're going to do now is see if you can keep your rib cage right above your hips. So it's not pushing forward and it's not pulling back. It's like you want to stack the cylinder of your rib cage above the cylinder of your hips. Does that make sense? Yeah. So keep the rib cage stacked above your hips, and you can take your hands to your thighs with your elbows out slightly and bent. So keeping the idea of this stacked rib cage, we're just going to hinge forward from right here, the creases, like where the legs and the hips join. We're going to hinge forward a little bit. Now put the weight into your hands, and then you're going to push into your hands and come back up. Right? So as we come forward and back, I'm just going to ask you to visualize that nice stacking of the rib cage and the hips, right? So you can still have the rib cage and hips stacked even as you come forward. They're in sort of the symmetry, right? So do it without clenching your jaw, without tightening your shoulders, and do it while you're breathing. So you want to have your head up slightly, right? Because you have your head kind of perched above your rib cage. And the next time you're forward, I'm going to ask you to hold here and breathe. So as you press into your hands a little bit, can you get a little longer through your spine? Breathing in, breathing out. You might even come forward a little bit farther, right? So how far forward can you come where it's comfortable? Pressing into your feet. Can you feel your feet doing a little bit of work? If you press into your tripods and you press into your toes, can you feel your leg muscles activate? And then with your next exhale, you're going to press into your feet, press into your hands, and come all the way back up. Excellent. Relax that. Let your hands just rest here. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a couple of breaths in and out and just notice. Eyes open. Okay, coming back to the rib cage as sort of our landmark, right? So right side, you're going to place your right hand on your right rib cage. No, we're not going to do that. I got a better idea. Okay, so take your right hand and find your hip bone on the right. Can you all find the hip bone? Find the top of the hip bone. It's the place where you can put your hand and it just kind of fits perfectly right there in the top of the hip bone. Okay, so you're going to hold that right hand on the right hip bone. Take your left hand, place your left hand on your left rib cage and go down, not way up under your armpit, but go down a little bit, like near the bottom. Got that? Okay, so if you're leaning over to that left side, come right up. Okay, so can you feel kind of the space? Can you get a sense of where your hands are? There's a space between your right hand and your left hand, right? That's your waist. That's the space, right? So there's a space between the bones of the ribs and the bone of the hip there, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to lean a little bit into that right side, trying to bring your left hand closer to your right hand, right? And then come back up. So we don't have to go over too far to get that sensation. Now, one of the things that's kind of nice that you can do with your hands here is with your right hand, you're going to actually lift up a little bit, and with your left hand, you're going to push down a little bit. So let's do that. Let's push the right hand up and the left hand down, right? So your leaning is happening because of the movement in your hands. Got that? Does that make sense? No, that doesn't make sense? You're squeezing your fat. Okay. I don't have a response to that. So we're trying to bring our right hand and our left hand a little closer together, right? Good. Okay. And then let that go. Put your hands on your lap, close your eyes for a moment, and just notice if you have a little more awareness of that right side. The hip bone, the rib cage, and the space between. Take a breath in, let it out with a sigh. You can let your eyes open. Take your left hand now. You're going to find the top of that hip, right? So you'll find it. Your hand will go right there, right? Because if you get too high up, you'll push into it, you'll just keep pushing in. There's no bones there. Okay, so we're just going to push that down a little bit. Take your your right hand, and you're going to place it right down by the bottom of the left rib cage. So again, we have this set up, and you can feel the space between your right hand and your left hand, yeah? Okay, so notice, so now we're just going to lean first. So just lean into the left side and then come back up. And notice what that feels like. Okay, and then sitting up nice and tall now. Instead of leaning by moving your body, you're going to try and press your left hand, lift up a little bit with the left hand, press down a little bit with the right hand. So there's less movement in your body, right? You feel that? So here's leaning, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So this would be leaning, right, which we just did. And this is going to be lifting the bottom hand and lowering the upper hand. So you can see there's a whole lot less movement there. Takes a lot more concentration. Yeah.
That fat that's there, that roll of fat.
Yes.
It's being squeezed between the two hands.
It is being squeezed between the two hands. Yes, you're absolutely right. So there is definitely going to be some tissue in there that gets squeezed. Absolutely. But can you get the sense that the movement is happening a little deeper in your body when you do it that way? Let that go. Okay, that might not have landed for everybody. So close your eyes for a moment. Take a breath in and out. And let your eyes gently open. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is that there's a difference between using the muscles in the outside of your body to move, right? So when I move this way, I'm engaging the muscles here in the side of my waist to pull my body this way. I'm engaging the muscles here in the side of my waist to pull my body this way. When I have my hands here and I've got the what was that orientation? Oh yeah, bottom hand. So I've got the bottom hand and the top hand. When I just use my hands to try and move my rib cage closer to my hip, I'm getting at deeper muscles in the body, and these are the muscles that are responsible for balance, right? So the big muscles in your body are not the ones responsible for balance. My big waist muscles, the ones on the side of my waist, are not responsible for my balance. They're responsible for twisting me, for allowing me to go forward, to go backward, to reach up, to pull down, but they're not responsible for stabilizing and getting me into more balance. So let's try that one more time, sort of with that understanding. If you take your right hand and place it on the top of your right hip bone, your left hand on your rib cage, way down low, right? You don't want it on your waist. Now you want it on the ribs. So when you take the edge of your little finger, you should still feel bone there or something that will prevent you from going in more to your body. And now what we're going to do is, again, try and bring the top hand and the bottom hand closer together, right? And breathe. And let's try not just bringing them together, but try bringing them farther apart. Maybe that will be helpful, right? So you're trying to bring them farther apart. So you feel like you're not just leaning to the left side when you bring your hands farther apart, you're actually getting taller as well. I have a lot of confused faces. We're going to revisit this one a few times, I think. Good. That was easier. Okay, good. Thank you for that. All right, let's relax that. Let's go the other side. So take your left hand to the top of the hip bone and find that hip bone. All right, place it right on there. Take your right hand, place it on the rib cage. Okay, so we're going to bring the lower hand and the upper hand closer together, and then we're going to pull them apart, right? And you can really take your time with this, right? So we're just kind of going, opening through the rib cage, opening through the side of the waist, and then coming a little closer together. Is that making a little more of a connection for you?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Just a couple more times. Excellent. How about one more time? Good. And let that go. All right, hands on your lap. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in, breathe out. So small movements. So thinking about, with your eyes closed, if you were sitting right at the bottom of your rib cage, right? Actually, let's say you're sitting right in the middle of your pelvis. So you're right down around your belly button. Imagine little teeny you sitting right inside big you. And you're looking around, and you can see you're sitting in the bowl of the pelvis, and you can see your rib cage on either side of you and up above you. And as you inhale and exhale, see if you can get a sense of movement through the waist, through the belly as well. That as you breathe in, there's more space between the lower ribs and the top of the hips. And as you breathe out, there's less space between the lower ribs and the top of the hips. And you might need to take longer, slower, deeper breaths to get this sensation in your body. So once again, as you breathe in, see if you can get a sense of more space between the lower ribs and the tops of the hips. And as you breathe out, there's less space between the lower ribs and the tops of the hips. Breathing in, there's more space between the lower ribs and the tops of the hips. Breathing out, there's less space between the lower ribs and the tops of the hips. Let's get a little more specific with the intention here. So again, you're still eyes closed, sitting inside your pelvic bowl. As you breathe in, see if you can feel more space on the right side between the lower ribs and the top of the hip. So each time you breathe in, you're feeling more space between the right rib cage and the top of the hip. And as you breathe out, it goes back to sort of normal. So it's just one side. You're breathing into just the right side of your body. More space between the lower ribs and the top of the hip. And you may also be feeling or sensing that as there's more space on the right side when you breathe in, that there's less space on the left side when you breathe in. In other words, when you breathe in, there's less space between your left lower ribs and your left hip. And as you breathe out, there's a little more space there. And then we're just going to very gently, with intention, just switch sides. So as you breathe in, there's more space between the lower left rib cage and the top of the left hip. And as you breathe out, there's less space between the lower rib cage and the top of the hip. Again, as you breathe in, there's more space between the lower left rib cage and the top of the left hip. And as you breathe out, there's less space between the lower left rib cage and the top of the left hip. And as you feel this expansion and contraction in the left side of your body, notice if there's the opposite effect happening on the right side. So as you inhale and there's more space through the left waist, there's less space through the right waist. In other words, the right lower rib cage gets closer to the top of the right hip. I'll say that again. As you breathe in, there's more space on the left between the lower ribs and the top of the hip, and there's less space on the right between the lower ribs and the top of the hip. And with each exhalation, that comes back into a little bit more balance. Do this just a couple more times. See if you can really hone in on the difference between the left side and the right side as you're breathing in and expanding through the left and breathing out and letting that go. Okay, now let go of that intention of trying to lengthen just through the left side. And as you breathe in deeply, you're going to lengthen the entire rib cage up off of the pelvis. And as you breathe out, the entire rib cage moves down toward the pelvis. So again, as you breathe in, the rib cage lifts up off the pelvis. And as you breathe out, the rib cage moves down toward the pelvis. We're just going to do that a few more times. Breathing in, breathing out. Every inhale creates more space. If you're confused about when you have more space or not, just think of the inhale as it's like a balloon, right? The balloon is blowing up. The inhalation is when you get more space, and the exhalation is when you get less space. Inhaling more space, exhaling less space. And then let go of that sense of creating more and less space and just breathe in a natural way. Just let your breath flow in and out of your body. And notice what you're most aware of as you just breathe in and out. Take one more inhalation, let it out with a sigh. If you'd like, you can take your hands together. Just take a moment to just appreciate your breath and your movement, these very slight movements that we investigated today. Very slight movements, so important, so critical for balance. And then, if you'd like, you can open your eyes and just have a little look around, welcoming all these awesome folks here. Great. Tiptoe through the raindrops out there, you guys. And I'll see you all next week.